Welcome to Built to Finish. I'm your host, Steven Pivnik. Join me each week as we explore the journeys of audacious goal setters. This includes experienced founders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs sharing pivotal moments that propel their success. We'll also be talking with endurance athletes who push the limits of physical and mental ability. This show is brought to you by Acresis, offering tailored, high-impact advisory services to help founders get to their finish line with a strategic acquisition or majority investor recapitalization. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to the very first episode of the Built to Finish podcast. I've been working on this project for a while, and I'm super excited to finally get it off the ground. I could not have asked for a better first guest. Today's guest has completed 35 full-distance Ironman triathlons, including 2 World Championship events. He has raced in countless marathons, including 3 ultramarathons at the 100-mile distance. He has been featured in Ultra Running magazine and has run over 200 miles alone in this year. I'm already exhausted with this. In addition to his endurance hobbies, he actually has a full-time job. He is an experienced financial professional with over 20 years of expertise in financial reporting, data analysis, budgeting, forecasting, cash management, and strategic planning. I'm thrilled to have the chance to speak with someone whose impressive career spans so many crucial areas of financial operations and whose insights have undoubtedly helped countless organizations strengthen and streamline their financial performance and maximize profitability and efficiency. He is currently serving as vice president of Apple Bank. Igor Yakushko, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Steven. Really be honored to be on your show.
No, it is awesome to have you here. So, professionally speaking, before we get into all of this incredible endurance stuff that I know you and I love to speak about, you've done a lot in your career for various companies. What exactly is your current role?
Currently, I'm working with Apple Bank with the investment accounting department. What the bank does is when it has excess of deposits, instead of using that money, some of it is used for operation, but some of it is used for investing into markets such as mortgages, stocks, bonds, trades, derivatives,
Hmm.
foreign exchange. And what my role is partially is to oversee that the payments we are receiving agree to what expected should be. And at any given point, we can actually see if that investment is sound, if it's profitable or not, and we can make a decision based on that where to go forward.
Got you. That sounds like a ton of work, and I know it's keeping you incredibly busy with your schedule.
Yes, indeed. It makes the day go very fast.
So, with your endurance racing experience, you're definitely used to a lot of long, drawn out efforts. These races are very, very long. On the business front, do you have anything that compares from a very long, drawn out project that you were part of?
Yes, comes to my mind that back in 2001, when Prudential Financial was still only had that Prudential name to it, and it was going public at that time. And what they were doing is for about 18 months, they were doing a roadshow when they gathered all their investors to build a capital. So they had to do a lot of reports to, I guess, lure in lots of different investment companies. And to do so, you really provided different types of information based on what every client was looking for. And that required a lot of midnight burning oil, where we would stay past midnight. And I was living back then in Brooklyn, New York, and the work was at Newark, New Jersey. So the drive itself was clearly um going through all the bridges, and it was quite extensive drive. And the last thing after a long, long day in the office, you really wanted to either go back to sleep extremely tired, and you know that you have to be back in the office early, bright and early. And
Hmm.
instead, what I really needed for my body by sitting all day at the desk, you really need that jolt of energy. And one people could say sitting and eating junk food or something drinking to make yourself feel better and relax, I found out that just going for a beautiful jog somewhere back in Brooklyn where you can run on boardwalk where it's all wooded, um, easy on the joints, very nice run where you can either see early sunrise and there's really no one there. You can feel that crisp air if it's summertime or spring.
Wow. So after a 12 to 16-hour day, you would actually go out for a run to unwind.
Yes, I would. Sometimes
Wow.
knowing that it's all boardwork, so there's no
Hmm.
nothing that should be ahead of you, and it's relatively good lit, or at least back then it was. You can run without headlamp, and it's out and back from point to point was just about 5 miles. So that's perfect, easy run where you can just get that dopamine to your brain. And what it does is just resets your body to get all the balance back to you energetically. And you don't need that. The stress just melts off of you. It's like you sitting in the sauna and just sweat it out.
No, I totally get it. I'm sure you'd come in first thing in the morning, much fresher than a lot of other people who didn't do something similar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that gives you a perfect meditative state where you just run and I can still clearly see those sunrises where right before work, you just get up earlier and go for a run. And right after that, I would just do a quick shower and hop in the car and go back to the office. But the fact that memory, I can kind of extract from
Hmm.
my memory vault and relive it as many times as I want. It just tells me that whenever I need to meditate or something that feels stressful, you can just close your eyes and feel that crisp morning run. It's priceless because when something bad happened, you don't want to remember. You want to forget like it never happened. But in like
Yep.
if it's something really really good, you can put it in your memory vault and extract it as many times as you want for your benefit. And I
Yep.
honestly think that works so perfectly, especially for balancing when you are a lot of time in the office. It's very late, and you know that you've been sitting still for a while. So, best thing to do is to do a little exercise. I'm not saying you need to run a fastest mile of all. You can just easily run at aerobic pace, whatever you're comfortable with, and just enjoy the present moment.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, one of my most favorite features of this Apple Watch is that it reminds me to get up every hour. If I'm sitting for too long, it literally says time to get up, and I do so. And just for literally for 60 seconds, just moving around makes a humongous difference versus sitting there for 8 hours straight without any movement. So I'm totally on the same page. Look, speaking about things that we want to forget, in the endurance world, the worst words that we can possibly hear, or worst initial, is DNF, did not finish. Are there any, before we get into the endurance stuff, are there any DNF examples that you had professionally of projects that just didn't go well?
Yes, and I can think of many of them, projects that were incomplete or something that you started and it turns out to be that it was not needed. It was not used in any of presentations. Um, what I'm thinking of is the DNF does not sound as bad as DNS, which is did not start. I honestly
Yep.
believe that you learn from uh, errors and mistakes a lot more than if you don't do anything. So in my case, there were times where I put a lot of effort, and unfortunately, the company had to go through a downsizing, and it came out of nowhere. It was unexpected, and you were let go because not because of your performance, but because of the overall corporate system had to turn you
Sure.
down and downsize for you're not going to save a lot of on the pen and pencils. The biggest is is the salary for employees. So
Yep.
those moments where you actually after the downfall, you come up. better and stronger knowing that the DNF is nothing to be afraid of. It's really the DNS did not start where you had an opportunity, but you didn't take it. That is, in my opinion, and I would argue with anybody to say that this is the best failure, the biggest failure of not taking the opportunity, even if you know you're not going to succeed in it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think people should not have regrets about DNFs because you use them as a learning experience. But I think what most people will have eventually is DNSs. So that's a great lesson to impart on a whole bunch of people. Don't be afraid to start, even if there's a DNF potentially in the future. Starting is key.
Totally. And we all get up in the morning. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a clean slate. 24 hours later, you have an opportunity to be the best you can, only one day at a time. And I tell my kids, even if you fail, if this is the best you did, I'm proud of you. But if you didn't try it, that's where we can talk about more.
No, 100%. So speaking about starting, you and I started our Ironman journey literally on the same day. We didn't know each other, but we met after we completed Ironman Lake Placid in 2011, I think it
Correct.
was. So for me, I mean, I called my entire triathlon and Ironman journey my midlife crisis because I didn't have any athletic background at all, and I got into triathlon at a late age of 40. So what was your athletic background like, and what was your journey to Ironman?
Right. So when I was living back in Ukraine, and we called it Soviet Union, we did not have the internet and the luxury of all the bells and whistles that now our kids have. And I would say we're one of the last generation that grew up without digital world. So back then, being active, running around, and those type of things were absolutely natural for every kid around the block. So after school,
That's
we
right.
would play soccer, run around, and just spend most of the time outdoors. Um, I was a very active kid, and when I was in the high school, a coach came to recruit some people to play rugby. It was very foreign type of sport at that time. It was not familiar to many. To no one knew about it, and I took upon it because it was just something different, and I was curious. And obviously, I had a lot of energy to invest, so I figured, why not? Uh, it was very helpful to meet new friends, travel to see different cities. Uh,
Okay.
we spend a lot.
So this was like the equivalent of a traveling league that we have here?
Yes, but that was a junior.
Okay.
So once we became a little more senior, and those were my 17, 18-year-old, right before I migrated to United States, we've traveled and we played the sport at the different locations with different people and in different conditions, whether it's really
Mhm.
hot or super cold, and uh, you can slide scratch your skin on the ice, and that's something that kind of
Wow.
feel like you are men up so fast because you see other people and you say, well, I don't want to be the weakest link. So it was
Right.
definitely a good experience. And when I migrated to United States, to New York City, most of the time I was just looking for a way to stay fit. So local fitness club where I also met other friends who were also passionate in running. So I continued my running
Mhm.
streak, and then eventually, me and my old buddy, we just ran the first half marathon. That was
Okay.
absolutely epic, and we just got so hooked on it. So we continued to run different halves, and then we ultimately migrated to a full marathon, which was extremely moving.
Crossing that
Oh
finish
yeah,
line, I'm sure, is something you'll never forget.
I still remember like it was yesterday. The
Mhm.
good thing is you find mind like uh, mind like people, and you build this great relationship where people sharing, and you become part of the community where you can actually be sharing this information without being judged, because obviously no one knows 100% what they're doing. And
100%. We still don't.
we still learn. We we do crazy things, but at the same time, among our community, it doesn't sound crazy at all. So,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think we have our own vocabulary, and when I speak with others, as I'm sure you have the same reactions, people are like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" So it's definitely interesting to see reactions from others that are outside the community.
absolutely. I have a friend who has his own business, and sometimes he works through all night long without even going back home because his work requires that. He drives thousands of miles a month. It's just part of his job because he has so many
Right.
people that works for him. And sometimes I just ask myself, how is it possible that you do this? I understand if you do it once, like you run 100 miles and you just have to skip one night, and then, for the next couple of months until your next race, you go back to your routine. He does
Right.
it a lot frequently. And he just told me that just the same way you can get up and run a marathon without proper training, but you know that your body is fit and your mind will push you to that finish, say final 6 miles,
Hmm.
you can do it. And I said, yeah, of course I can do it. It's not going to be anything fast to be bragging about, but I
Right.
can do it. He goes, just the same way I do it. It's just in my blood.
That's a great analogy. Great analogy. So an Ironman is an incredible accomplishment. There's plenty of people that take on this challenge. They train for it. They get it done, and they're one and done after they cross that finish line. Which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I have complete respect for anybody that does even a single race at any distance, but specifically Ironman. So what was your feeling like after that first finish? I know, I mean, I was there. Well, we didn't know each other, but I finished at same finish line in Lake Placid with you. What did you feel like about the accomplishment, and did you make any decisions about going further with Ironman at that point?
Oh man, I remember that moment so vividly, and it's a blur at the same time. What I mean by that is I've visualized that so many times, the crossing the first finish line of an Ironman. It's something that you will never forget, and so many days, so many training blocks. I was visualizing, thinking, what is it going to look like? Do I raise my hands? Do I piss
how
pump my fist?
am I going to pose for that finisher line picture? Right.
And it's the Ironman Lake Placid, where it's all finishes in an oval, where all the Olympics of 1980 Winter Olympics were performing.
Hmm.
So you do not see the finish until the last maybe 100 yards of the finish line.
Right.
So you're looping around and you're going through that oval finish, and then finally
Hmm.
you see it. It's like uh, gates of glory Mary, and you see like, okay, this is it. And obviously you wanted to take it as slow as possible so you can take all your time in to enjoy the moment. But I I was pushing against the clock, and my time was, I think I was so affixed on doing it sub 12. So, and I see this big giant clock on the top of the finish tower, and it says 11:59 and change. But this
Oh
is
wow.
where I completely blacked out, and I just ran to the finish until I actually crossed the finish line. And so one of the catchers volunteers stopped me, and I only had one question: did I actually made it sub 12?
Did you?
I did. It was like probably 20 seconds to spare. But when I say I remember that moment, but then as soon as I saw the clock, it got blurry. Like I did not enjoy that moment where I was gonna the high fives to all the people who were there at the last 50 meters. It never happened to me at the first time. So that experience alone was uh, obviously you have so many endorphins going. It's flowing in you. It's like you are so high on the excitement that you completely feel no pain and you feel like I'm a cloud nine.
Oh yeah, I cannot agree more. I mean, let's just be clear. When you say you were racing against the clock, you were racing against your
Oh,
clock.
totally.
Ironman has a 17-hour finish, which I come closer to. Well, actually, it doesn't take me that long, but I can't finish at 12. So you were racing against your own personal clock and trying to beat it, and you did, which is an incredible first performance.
Thank you. It's definitely something that everyone has you against you race most of the time.
Mm,
And once you have at least one race, it's now you versus the time you did before.
exactly.
So, and it could be a different course, it could be a different weather condition, it could be something changed in the course itself route, but you're still going back to say, well, I want to do better, and can you do better? And that's a moment where you put that bar, you set it up, and then you try to always keep that bar lowering.
100%. And for anybody listening, Igor and I spoke yesterday, and we will go back to Lake Placid to kind of have a reunion race. Hopefully, we will be there in June or July of 26, racing again together. And I can't wait.
Yeah, me too.
So I get asked this question all the time. So I'm really going to enjoy asking you this question. These races are super long. 12 hours is still a very, very long time, even though that's very fast. A 100-mile ultra marathon, that takes approximately like 20-ish hours, sometimes more. What do you think about for 20 hours when you're racing?
Everything and nothing at the same time.
Oh my God. You must have heard me answer this question a million
Oh,
times
yeah.
because literally verbatim. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Would love to hear your version.
You, huh. Well, let me start with something smaller. Like when I do an Ironman, you can't think
Hmm.
of bike when you're just starting to get in the water. It's just too early. So, and you need to focus on present and now, and very important to know where the course is, where the buoys are, what conditions. Like, for example, I was in Estonia this summer, and there were so many jellyfish that at some point you feel like you're swimming with a lot of plastic bags. It just
Oh my
gets
God.
to, and needless to say, no one happened to mention that. So the day before, I went for a swim. I tested the water. Not bad. There were a couple of them back. Um, maybe, maybe because I didn't go out too far in the water, I just swam along the shore just to test the temperature in my wetsuit. But as we started the race the following morning, must have been a quarter mile from the shore, you start feeling this a whole cluster of jellyfish. Luckily, they were not
Wow.
stinging, but the temperature must have brought them overnight closer to the shore, and it was. There's nothing else I could have think of. Even if somebody tells me you need to think about the bike at the moment or how you're going to run this race, it was difficult for me just to concentrate on anything other than just extending my stroke and breathing on the side and try to avoid as much of those jellyfish. And lastly, I usually do shave before that, but I didn't do it
Uh-huh.
for that race. And when you have that little 5 hour PM shadow, it just scratches on your skin, and you feel like you're
Ugh.
pulling that jellyfish every single time when you turn your face inwards in the water. So uh, that was an experience to on its own. And
Oh, for
as you
sure.
come out of the water, you start focusing on, okay, that one phase is done. Let's start focusing on the bike. And at that moment, you don't really think of swim anymore, or at least not so vividly, and you're concentrating just on the bike mileage ahead of you. So this is just an example for the Ironman. For something ultra like hundreds, I was in Vermont in this July, and it was very hot. It must have been getting to like mid 90s.
Oh my God. 100-mile ultra marathon in the
It
90s.
was humid and hot.
Oh,
But what
wow.
you don't realize is once it's super hot during the day, it drops to a comfortable 50s and at night, but your body doesn't adapt so quickly. So you really need that layer of comfort clothing that you are hoping you're gonna see at your next aid station.
Hmm.
When the temperatures drop, you can't really concentrate much on anything else because you need to keep your body going and you are slowing down drastically. A, because you're tired. B, is because you are really want to be cautious on the course. Even your headline is not strong enough to show you all what's in front of you, and it's a lot of rocks, so you have to be
Hmm.
mindful and watch where you're stepping, and your mind is
Of
already
course.
drifting. You start hallucinating like a mile, maybe 75, 80. You're already feeling like every rock looks so appealing, like a pillow. You just want to hug it and lay down there. Every ditch, you say, this looks great. I can just take my 20-minute snap there. So a lot of things going on, but it's something that you think of something like, for example, your kids, your family. They are the ones that give you that energy to get through those rough patches, and
Yep.
you use every trick up your sleeve. Mantras, talking to yourself, talking to somebody who's distant, and
Hmm.
you pull all the memories from your memory vault and you say, okay, I've been through this. This is how I dealt before. Let's see how I can use this. And you see what's working and what's not. You talk to other people who
Yep.
might be next to you at the moment during the race, or you try to visualize as what is it going to be look like when you cross the finish line. So a lot of things go through your mind, but very important to not to get um, distracted so far that you are completely in disarray where you cannot think straight, or you feel like I'm fine and then you hallucinating somewhere in the middle of the woods at 4 o'clock at night, or the between 3 and 4 a.m. they call it devil hour because this is where all the tough part, it's darkest, and it's where you really needs to it you strip to the core, just
Yeah,
you
you got to dig super super deep at that point.
yeah. And the beauty of that is once the whole bad stuff, everything just falls apart like a jigsaw puzzle, and you start putting every single piece back together.
That's a great analogy. I
You
love
one
that.
step at a time, and you just put it together, and then you have a choice. And the choice is, do you want to bring with you? Do you want to be one solid piece? And what pieces, you have a choice of which pieces are going to be. Is it going to make you stronger, or is it going to make you weaker at the end of the race? You see a huge dudes that are passing you on the mile 25 with a running like, I'm going to charge and finish this. And then you see them around mile 80, they done, they broken,
They're hurting.
they
Yep.
are broken, and you just try to help them as much as you can, but at the same time you realize that they either had too much um, energy spent in the beginning, or they just
Hmm.
didn't expect this, I guess, challenge to deal with.
Yep.
They didn't have enough tools. It's like you have a computer and you have a lot of different apps, and you're using the apps that you need at the moment.
No, I love that analogy. I was speaking to a marathoner recently, and he basically said that the second he started to have a problem on the race, he thinks of an individual that's close to him, whether family or friend, and instantly dedicates that mile to them. And he says, if I don't finish this mile, I'm letting that person down. And then that gets him to the end of that mile. And then if he's still hurting, the next mile is the same exact thing. Put a name into the brain and say, if I don't finish this mile, I'm letting that person down. And one after another, it gets him to the 26-mile mark.
Yeah, I've used that analogy too before. It works. It works to the point where you put in so much pressure on yourself that you can't say no to it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
What other thing is, you can actually mentally talk to someone who's not with us anymore, and it connects you to that spirit where you can actually just say whatever you want to say because nobody's
Yeah. Yeah.
judging.
Yep.
It's amazing. You can have an amazing discussion. Obviously, it's going to be very short, but you can say, like, for example, my dad, he's no longer with us, but I've used that a few times where, or my grandfather, where I remember those amazing memories where I was just trying to use them for my benefit and say, this is where I need you. This is where I need you to help me to get through this. And I felt like that presence is pushing me forward and giving me some extra wings for it.
You just triggered a great memory of mine. I was racing once in Frankfurt doing an Ironman, and I was really hurting on the marathon, like more than
Mhm.
usual. And my uncle had just recently died a month prior, and my father died a year prior to that. Both of their names were Alex. And you know how when we race, people use chalk and they put racers'
Yeah.
names on the sidewalk to encourage them. As if by magic, all of a sudden I see Alex, Alex, Alex in front of me on the ground. And to your point, I instantly started remembering all the incredible times that I had with these two guys because they were incredibly close and they were like the original two wild and crazy guys from Saturday Night Live. So all I started remembering were their shenanigans from my youth, and it got me through the last 5 miles because I was literally I was gonna DNF. I was gonna just throw in the towel, but then I started remembering them, and they got me to the finish line.
It's amazing. It works.
Oh, it
You-
totally works. It totally works. So speaking of things that work, switching gears a little bit, but still kind of related. Obviously, healthy living and eating is incredibly important to maintain this type of hobby and all of these activities. You've taken this to a whole new level. I actually sometimes call you my New Jersey farmer friend. So I wish we had a camera in your backyard. Can you share what you have going on back there?
So it's every season it's a little different because you can plant a lot of seeds, but there is no guarantee that all of them or any of them will sprout. So,
Okay.
for instance, this year we had squash. The I love that. It's you make you can bake it, anything you can think of. It's just a lot of nutrients. It's delicious.
Hmm.
It reminds me of my childhood. My mom and my grandma always cooked them. Uh, Peppers. This year, actually, and I have to just pause and just give credit to my wife because she's the one who is doing all that
Yep.
from little seeds. Beginning of winter, she puts a table and with the UV lights to grow those little seedlings and then plant them in the garden. That she used a lot of different seeds from a lot of different sources. So without going into detail, she makes every season something different. So this year she planted a super hot, I think it's called scorpion, like or devil scorpion hot peppers that are
Oh wow,
absolutely it's fire starters.
I love spicy food.
So cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, hot peppers.
So you have a ton of fresh vegetation back there, which is awesome.
Yes.
Talk about farm to table. It's literally backyard to table for you. Anything alive back there?
At this point, everything has been harvested, but also she had the watermelons and a lot of flowers. We did consider to do bees for next year. It's always kind of cool to have something new for the season. So because we have enough property to put the beehive, so I'm thinking
Okay.
to put the
Oh wow.
bees.
So you'll have honey soon. I love it.
I would love to.
And you have chickens as well? Multiple types of chicken? Is
We
that
do
right?
have chickens. We build the chicken coops, and recently found out we also have foxes because of chickens.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so our neighbor has been actually recently, as today, was sharing the videos that the fox was in the backyard. It's something that you start one project and you don't think of it now, but there's going to be some predators that you need to think of that as well. So everything comes in price. Obviously, it's always easier to go to Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and buy what you need, but the the fact that I was able to peel some beets from the garden and peel them and bake them last night, it was just amazing feeling of just having your own sort of products to eat. It's super cool.
No, I'm sure it is, and so incredibly healthy. That's incredible. So you've got a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, you've got more than a full-time job because they keep you. You're super busy there. The racing schedule is intense. I thought I raced a lot. I mean, you put me to shame in a in a great way. And you have two young kids. How do you balance all of this? Do you sleep?
Absolutely. And lately, sleep has been a great remedy for a lot of things.
Sure.
There is a good saying says sleep on it, and it goes,
Hmm.
sleep is underrated. Obviously, when we were
Sure.
teenagers, we can party all night and without going to bed, just come home, take a shower, change, and go to work, and you feel like you slept 8 hours. Now you can sleep 8 hours and you wake up and you feel like you've been partying all night. So that's really the age that you need to adapt. Sleep is important, but at the same time, I strongly believe that if you want to succeed at your goals, you need to have them set in stone. And by that, I mean you should have a specific date on your calendar to have that fixed, a fixed where you know that a 6 months away the race is on, and you just say what I've been doing so far, and it's totally up to you. And if you want to take it seriously now or just wait another 2 3 months and say okay, I have 3 more months left to go, and that
Hmm.
is the best pressure for you to say what is it that you need? Do you need the schedule? Do you have your nutritionist? Do you have your coach to tell you a structured plan and work on your weaknesses, obviously? So, right now it's off season, and that's the best time to take a seat back and just revisit your races and see what worked, what didn't, and also work on your weaknesses. Like you always say, the faster you go, it's better. But sometimes slow down and just focus on your core or
Hmm.
weightlifting is what really gonna, especially for age grouper like myself, when we're not young anymore and elastic, you want to spend that time by calisthenics and working on your weights where you can actually still talking about longevity, because obviously to set a
Yep.
new PR is going to be a much more difficult when you were 20 years younger. But now it's something you think and you say, where am I going to see myself in the next 5, 10 to 20 years? And what do I need to do to be kind to your joints, to your back, to your spine? And that's where you need to focus on, whatever your weakness is. And
Hmm.
as far as the racing, going back to the calendar, set the date, put it on. And I know you have that giant date on your desk uh, with a due date. That is something that you know that if the time comes and you're not ready, there's no one to blame but you. And the other thing, your part of your question, how do you balance? It's really the seesaw where you say, okay, if I would put everything aside and I would just focus on my training and somebody would do the work for me and take care of the kids and the family, obviously my expectation results would be significantly faster. But is
Hmm.
it really worth it? Because the
Correct.
balancing act where you see in the circus where people doing a lot of juggling at the same time, you wanted to be realistic and say maybe I'm not going to be able to meet my goals that I was expected 20 years ago, but at least I am reasonably within mid pack to the front, a racer, like I call it the weekend warrior, where you can
Hmm.
just say I do have blessed family who allows me to do that, but at the same time I can train in reasonable hours early in the morning or late in the evening, where you say okay, I will do the race, but it's not going to be something to brag about as a final
Sure.
hour results, but you will take it as a journey. Now that we're a little more mature athletes, we understand that another race with another number is just, you put a medal on your trophy and
On the
on
trophy
the
wall.
trophy wall. Thank you. And what is it really that you're putting in the memory vault? I think that's a long term really more beneficial than just have another 30 minutes faster race, but you have no recollection of it, and you felt miserable, it was not worth it.
No, that's great advice. I mean, I love that. My terminology for that is not fast, not last. I train hard enough to do well and feel good, but not for any. I mean, this may change in the future because I do have some PRs that I'm hoping to achieve. But for the most part, my racing has been let's just get to the finish line in a healthy state and enjoy the journey as much as the destination.
Absolutely. I remember one moment very clearly that in New Zealand when I met first time uh, Craig Alexander, the three-time world Ironman world champion. I asked him specifically, like, what do I need to do to go to finish faster? He said, look, it's really about journey. If you are not a professional where your family depends on whether you win or not and whether you're going to bring that food to the table,
Right.
there is absolutely no reason to go crazy bananas and just race your gut out and come home miserable. He said, just enjoy the journey because some
And risk injury.
yeah. And he said, look, you can always nobody wants to suffer that much on the course. And if you want to stop it faster, just run faster. but but truth to be told, I do remember that time when I was going through some rough patches during my ultra 100-mile run, where I was thinking just clearly. Craig Alexander was right next to me, and he told me, look, he's right next to me telling me the same words. You need to be present and enjoy the journey, even if really you embracing the suck, you embracing it as best as you can. It could be cold, it could be rain, but you just tell yourself, look, everybody wants the winner's trophy, but nobody wants to put the same amount of suffering that he went through.
Totally. I mean, bringing up Craig Alexander brings back a lot of memories for racing in Kona. But one of my best memories is like you and I often talk the day before one of us races, and you are incredibly inspirational with whatever I've got coming up next. And I remember agonizing a little bit about my finishing time, even though obviously my goal was just to finish at the World Championship. But I was kind of agonizing about my time, and you gave me this fantastic Neil Armstrong analogy. Do you remember what that was?
Absolutely. The analogy is very simple. They ask you whether you've been to the moon, and you can proudly say you have, but no one ever will question how long did it take you to get there. It's truly remarkable because if you think about it, you just know the guy who went to the moon, landed on the moon, and honestly, nobody really cares how long it took them. Even though,
Right.
for scientists and a lot of small amount of group of people who knows that as a fact, but it's only for them to know. For the rest of the world, it's just a meaningless number. The fact is, he was there, and that's remarkable to by any standard.
Yep, I definitely kept that in the back of my mind when I wanted to push harder, specifically on the run. I said, "There's absolutely no point because nobody's going to care how long it's going to take me as long as I can get to that finish line." And I actually enjoyed the run a lot because it took longer than usual, but I didn't care because all I wanted was that finish because of that motivation. So thank
Oh,
you.
my pleasure. I'm always happy to share, and whatever I learn, I think it's just passes from other athletes. I come to realizations that it comes down to a very simple few points. Number one, have that set in stone on your calendar. Have a date, pick a race, and build a plan. If you're an advanced athlete, you probably already have a plan, and you can just
Hmm.
recycle and reuse it to adapt to your new plan, whether it's something more challenging on the bike or a hilly run. You can incorporate that to make it stronger, your whatever your forte is. Number two, your routine. It's a healthy lifestyle with begins with good nutrition, enough sleep, adequate recovery, and that's already half of your battle won just by doing those two things. Number three, if you are beginner, find somebody who has your similar mind liking, like a community where you can find people who think alike. With the newer technology and social media, you can find it very easily with just a click of a few buttons and Google search. Uh, a lot of times I find it more helpful than not, although I I train and race mostly by myself, and I do most of my training indoor.
Hmm.
It's very important to go out there and explore, give yourself a chance, especially for the new beginners. Now nowadays we
Yep.
look at it, we have everything, technology, heart rate monitors, you have 24/7 sleep, your technology that helps you to measure everything about yourself that you don't know, sweat
Hmm.
rate, whatever your zones for the heart rate. What are your nutritions? You know, if you want to try a keto diet, if you want to try anything that just,
Yep.
a lot of people start this with the losing the weight. I personally don't think being an athlete will help you lose the weight because you will have high metabolism and appetite through the roof, but it will help you to shape into being more muscle mass than convert from that fat that you have stored. And that's the better way to think longevity wise, to be stronger, because
Hmm.
as you age, you lose the body mass. And most importantly, really enjoy the journey, because a lot of times people focus on the finishing times and they say, well, I've done, I know people who ran over 40, 100 milers, and his goal is to run 100 of them, to do 100 miles. We both know John Ragg, who've done over 250
Yep.
Ironmans. He probably has quite a big number of DNFs as well, but he still keep doing it because for him it's not something that he publicly. I don't even know if he has a Facebook page. I know his
Yeah,
mark.
he's definitely a super low key, modest guy, like yourself.
But the thing is that we're doing it for ourselves, not for bragging rights. And the have a mind of you will probably fail at some point, but it's just not something that will define you. It will just tell you that you have limits that you can expand, but at the same time, this is a journey that helps you learn about yourself.
Oh yeah, you know what? Those are fantastic closing words. So one last question. You are a wealth of knowledge. I mean, you've been doing this for so long, and you're incredibly good at it, and you've learned so much, and then you continue to learn, which is really impressive. Yet you keep a very low profile, just like John, which is also very admirable. If anybody listening has a question on anything that we've covered, what is the best way to reach you? Is it just a message on LinkedIn, or is there any other way?
Perfect. You know what? I think LinkedIn would be the best source. In about 5 years, you only need to say a few words and one picture, and AI will do the rest.
Pretty much.
So
You can. We're pretty close to that right
yeah,
now.
to hide it's probably impossible. Even if you have a phone in your pocket, probably the world knows what you're talking about. So the privacy that we know is probably out of the window. It's been a long time ago, but to get in the contact, I'm always happy to share what I know and to share my experience. But to the point where if my LinkedIn inbox will be all of a sudden cluttered, I don't think I'll get to it before Christmas.
All right. Well, we're going to put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes down below. Igor, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for agreeing to be the inaugural guest on the Built to Finish podcast. I've learned a lot today. Hopefully, listeners have learned a ton as well. You're incredibly inspirational, motivational. You're my motivation, my nutrition, my exercise, my training coach, like, and friend, all in one box. And I'm like just super grateful to have this relationship with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm very honored, and I appreciate all the kind words. I'm looking forward to continue this conversation, and hopefully, this will be we'll have a happy reunion to this podcast.
I can't wait. Thanks again. That's a wrap for this episode of Built to Finish. Thank you for tuning in. For show notes and more details, head over to podcast.stevenpivnik.com. Special thank you to our sponsor, Acresis, offering tailored, high-impact advisory services that help founders get to their finish line with a strategic acquisition or majority investor recapitalization. Catch you next week.